Okay, so in this little short video, I'm going to introduce like the mesh system using the audio, some of the attributes you can kind of use with it. You can find this stuff all over. People have different methods. Some people like use the node editor when it comes to certain stuff, but this is just a brief overview of how to add the audio to it. I have a video on my channel about mesh systems, which is a really good introductory to it, but this is just specifically for the audio base and learn how to make the audio, the geometry react to the audio. So first what I want to do, make sure you have a WAV file that you're using. You don't want to put MP3s in here because it will give you an error. But just to kind of start off, I have this object I've created. It's just a low res cube from up here, and I'm just going to create a mesh system with here. So you can go to your FX, or you can go to you get your mesh system up here. You can go to up here like this. This is all covered in the first video on the mesh systems. But I want to create a mesh system, mesh network. So what that does, it instance out, just distribute out. If you go to your attribute editor over here, you can change this, how many points you want, how you want this offset, radial, however. Let's do this right here. Let's give it a few more points. So there we go. Now we got a mesh system. You can't move it or anything. That's kind of how it is. You need to add actually a transform. One thing I don't cover basically in my other, I haven't looked at it in a while, but how to move this actually system around. You need to add a transform, because if you got to move this, this won't move. Let's add a transform to it. Add transform node. If you look at our system here now that we've got our editor up here, we've got the transform and distribute. You still can't move it. You need to create a controller null. So you just right click on it, create. Now you can kind of basically move the whole system around or rotate it however you need to. So move it back to the center. I want to move it 90 degrees. So lay it on its back so we can kind of see these waveforms going throughout this audio here. So next thing, really, I need to add an audio node, and you probably saw it up in there. Let's go. Let's add the audio. Add audio node. Alright, so this comes up, and what I'm going to do here is I know my audio is going to be more than 120 frames, so I'm going to add in 1,000 frames. Now this is where you add your file at, your file name. Now I had like a thing I was using in class the other day. Yeah, this like concerto. It's kind of an orchestrated free download I got. It's a WAV file. It's added in there, and you kind of represented by this blue line basically. So if you hit play, nothing's happening. Well, yeah, it starts to happen, but you can see all this reaction taking place to the actual geometry itself using this spectrum. And if you think about that, a wave spectrum, how it works. Let's just Google one. So if you don't know what a wave spectrum is, it kind of runs in a linear fashion. If it gets rowdier or more noisy or abrasive, you're going to hear more reaction. But if it's a smoother kind of roll, that's the way it is with this right here. You can put this on average too. It just kind of rolls it around basically. But I like to make the entire system a spectrum. It just seems to be, it fits the music more. Now you also notice that you can't hear it, and that's because the file has been added to the system right here, and you need to add the actual file to the actual timeline itself. You can go up to File Import that way, or you can right click on the timeline, the audio, import audio. Let's go back to, and if you bring in the same exact audio piece that you added there, it's going to play in real time down here, but it's also playing. So it's basically playing two different, you imported it twice, but you're playing the same one. So basically this is just so you can hear it back and kind of understand what it's doing. So I'm not sure if my audio is going to come through on this. I may have to change my desktop to my desktop audio, turn it up a little bit, but I don't want to like blow it out whenever it comes through the playing. So you can see it's kind of reacting a little bit as I play through it. I'll start at the beginning. See the way it was kind of rising up. Let's change it to the average and see the difference of that maybe. It's kind of cool. It's a little bit more calmer, I think. And if you play this back and you don't hear your audio, you got to let this thing kind of refresh. If you notice, I hit it a while ago and it didn't. Like if I just go to another spectrum, I just start playing it. Oh, okay. But that thing has to kind of load. So now you can kind of go in and enable basically any kind of position or rotation for the actual system itself. So if you don't want to enable any of these right here, you can uncheck them. But if you just want to enable certain things, you can kind of start increasing frequencies on certain items. So we'll stop it, reset it. Let's just crank these up and see what happens. Can't get it to jump a little bit. Let me figure out what the problem is. Okay, so I basically didn't have my values turned up high enough. So it's kind of based on scale. So in other words, if you're not seeing any kind of jump here, I had these set at like whatever the maximum load was like 10. So if you set it more, let's bring it up to 200. Now we'll do a playback. And let's go spectrum. I'm going to cut the blue wireframe on so you can see it kind of jump a little bit. So yeah, so you may need to crank your values up a little bit. Let's go and adjust some more. Let's turn that one down a little bit. Let's mess with the rotation. 360 is basically your full rotation. Let's just go 180. See what happens. side. Let's get 360. You can see I'm kind of starting to turn a little bit. So the value needs to kind of go up pretty high to be affected. So whatever you decide to do, say if you cranked all of these up, and now I'm just kind of finessing and playing around. It's kind of cool. Now let's mess with some of the scales. I don't want to scale that. I want them to kind of get higher. So there we go with our Z. I want these at 100. And I'm actually going to go in here to my distribute and kind of lower the radius a little bit and might offset just some. So whatever angle you have of your camera for your renders, you know, you can always kind of navigate your camera in and out of these things while it's actually playing for your renders. That might be kind of cool. Like you have something kind of going in and out, watching the flow of the music. Or possibly what happens if we key the transform around. So we'll start at when the music starts. And I'm going to key the transform, slowly turn. Key it there. Oh, that's cool. Put music in there. Yeah, so the sky's the limit with this, really, guys and gals. You know, a lot of fun with these things, kind of making logos, kind of fly around however you want to, maybe objects kind of flying within those. And when it comes, these things can be textured up however you want these things textured up. I'm going to go to my cube, basically. And whenever it comes time to render these things out, these things, you just need to be aware of what frames per second these things are rendered out. And that can be taken care of in the playback speed, however you're playing it now. Because whenever you render out your image sequence, you'll want to go back and add the audio in post to make sure it matches up with the actual frames per second of what it was rendered out. So that's always something to be kind of, and that was covered earlier, you know, just your basic rendering out the audio or rendering out your sequence. So but yeah, so I hope this helps. I hope you have fun with this. And like I said, you can keep adding to your mesh network up here. You can keep adding certain things to kind of make it look cool, to kind of fit how you want to fit it. You put some particles in there to kind of make some more flowy things. But in terms of visualizing the audio, this is a great way to get started. So, okay, well, thanks for watching. Bye.